DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Marathon discussion on India's Operation Sindoor to continue in Lok Sabha as leaders from across the aisle to make an address. Home Minister Amit Shah to participate, Prime Minister to reply to the debate in evening. Both houses in Parliament to debate on India's Operation Sindoor as discussion to start in Upper House. Also, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to make opening remarks. Thai army accuses Cambodia of violating truce, says clashes continue despite deal to pause combat along their jungle-clad frontier. U.S. China to resume trade talks in Stockholm. Talks aimed at extending tariff truce by 90 days. China seeks reduction of U.S. tariffs and tech export controls. UN chief calls for viable two-state solution to Israel-Palestine conflict. Calls for a decisive turning point at United Nations conference boycotted by the US and Israel. Palestinian Prime Minister says Hamas must disarm and surrender Gaza control. And rains wreak havoc in China. At least 30 killed in rain-related incidents in capital Beijing. Over 80,000 relocated. And on to the details now. India's Parliament will continue its discussion on Operation Sindoor today. The special discussion on India's decisive Operation Sindoor to resume in the lower house after the question hour. Home Minister Amit Shah will begin the discussion on day 2, while leader of the opposition Rahul Gandhi will initiate discussion from the Congress party. Priyanka Gandhi and K.C. Venugopal are also listed as speakers from the opposition party. From Samajwadi Party, President Akhilesh Singh Yadav will address, while around 1700 IST, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also deliver his reply to the special discussion. In Rajya Sabha, the Upper House of Parliament, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will open the Operation Sindoor discussion today. Union Ministers J.P. Nadda and Nirmala Sitharaman will be main speakers from the government side. Leaders of the opposition in Rajya Sabha, Mallikarjun Kharge, will be the first speaker from the opposition side. 26 civilians were killed in the April 22nd terror attack in Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir, after which India retaliated through precision strikes under Operation Sindoor, targeting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And earlier on day 1, the long-awaited debate on Operation Sindoor finally began in the Lok Sabha, the lower house, with Defence Minister's fiery address. He gave an insightful perspective on the success of India's security apparatus and the courage of our armed forces. The debate began at 14:05 IST and went on till 00:52 IST. We get you details in our next report on what all happened during these almost 11 hours.
The day began with protests from the opposition benches, leading to 2 adjournments in the Lok Sabha before noon. The House was scheduled to take up a special discussion on Operation Sindoor at 12 p.m. But the debate could only begin post-lunch around 2 p.m. Opening the debate, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh launched a scathing attack on the opposition for, as he put it, raising doubts about the bravery and integrity of the Indian Armed Forces. Singh outlined the strategic intent and execution of Operation Sindoor, India's targeted response to terror bases operating in Pakistan. He termed it a tactical strike against state-sponsored terrorism and a warning to those harboring anti-India designs.
हमारी सेनाओं द्वारा की गई वेल कोऑर्डिनेटेड स्ट्राइक्स ने 9 टेररिस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर टारगेट्स को प्रिसीजन के साथ, सटीकता के साथ हिट किया और इस सैन्य कार्रवाई में एक अनुमान के अनुसार 100 से अधिक आतंकवादी, मैं बहुत संभल कर बोल रहा हूं अध्यक्ष महोदय, हमारी फिगर गलत ना होने पाए, फिगर इससे बहुत अधिक है, 100 से अधिक आतंकवादी, उनके ट्रेनर, उनके प्रशिक्षक उनके हैंडलर लश्कर तोयबा और हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन जैसे आतंकवादी संगठनों से संबंधित थे। ये वही आतंकी संगठन हैं जिन्होंने पाकिस्तान की सेना और आईएसआई का जिन्हें खुला समर्थन प्राप्त है।
Several leaders from the ruling NDA, including BJP's Baijayant Panda, TDP's Lavu Sri Krishna, and JDU's Lalan Singh, echoed the defense minister's sentiments. They accused the previous UPA government of inaction and lauded the precision and political resolve demonstrated through Operation Sindoor. The government has allocated 16 hours for this high-stakes debate. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, also spoke on the floor of the House on Monday evening. He tore into the opposition accusations on the ceasefire between India and Pakistan and US President Donald Trump's supposed negotiation. Jaishankar apprised the parliament on India's tactical diplomacy and the extradition of Tahawur Rana and the designation of TRF as a global terror organization. He also clarified that Operation Sindoor was suspended following a request from Pakistan.
I want to make two things very clear, sir. One, at no stage in any conversation with the United States was there any linkage with trade and what was going on. Secondly, please listen. Secondly, there was no call between the Prime Minister and President Trump from the 22nd of April, when President Trump called up to convey his sympathy, and the 17th of June, when he called up Prime Minister in Canada to explain why he could not meet.
The opposition too brought its battery of speakers. Leading for the Congress party, Gaurav Gogoi opened the opposition's response, with leaders from the TMC, Samajwadi Party and RJD also weighing in. They questioned the government's narrative and demanded greater transparency and strategic accountability. The Lok Sabha has allocated a total of 16 hours for the debate. The House will continue discussions on Operation Sindoor till Tuesday, after which a resolution is expected to be passed. Debyendu Mandal's report for DD India.
Well, in a major breakthrough, the Army's elite para-commandos gunned down 3 terrorists in an encounter on the outskirts of Srinagar in Jammu and Kashmir on Monday. The group was killed after the security forces launched a surprise action codenamed Operation Mahadev. Under the operation, a cordon and search operation in the forested Lidwas area was launched by Chinar Corps following specific intelligence inputs. The success is attributed to swift action and precise execution by the Army commandos. Indian Army assured that it stands by the commitment to keep Jammu and Kashmir terror-free. Well, Police Special Operations Group and the Army are carrying out a search operation in the Rajbagh PS area in the Kathua district. Well, 29th July marks a milestone in India's education landscape. It's the 5th anniversary of the National Education Policy 2020, a visionary framework that laid the foundation for transforming the education ecosystem in the country. It's a detailed report on the journey, achievements and impact of NEP over the past 5 years.
The National Education Policy 2020 gave prominence to early childhood care and education with introduction of the 5+3+3+4 structure, replacing the traditional 10+2 system. It recognizes the critical importance of formative years in shaping a child's learning journey. The new Education Policy 2020 advocates flexibility and choice. With interdisciplinary curriculum, vocational training and emphasis on skill-based learning, the focus has shifted from rote memorization to real-world application. Technology has played a pivotal role in NEP's implementation. From Diksha to PME Vidya, digital platforms have ensured continuity and accessibility, especially during the pandemic. NEP 2020 is also a symbol of equity, bridging the gender divide, empowering regional languages, and ensuring inclusive education for all sections of the society. From policy to practice, National Education Policy 2020 has become the cornerstone of educational transformation in India. As India celebrates 5 years of NEP 2020, the journey ahead is equally promising to nurture creative minds, global citizens, and confident learners from an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Kriti Vadhera's report for DD India.
Well, India marks International Tiger Day with renewed focus on conservation. But threats like poaching and habitat loss persist. Protecting the tiger means safeguarding biodiversity, forest and a shared ecological future. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya has this report.
Every year, International Tiger Day, also known as Global Tiger Day, reminds us of a majestic predator fighting for its survival. In the early 1900s, over 100,000 tigers roamed freely across Asia. Today, we have lost more than 95% of them. Poaching, habitat loss, and illegal trade continue to drive this majestic predator to the edge. By 2006, India had just 1,411 tigers left in the wild. A shocking decline from nearly. They are ecological guardians. As apex predators, they maintain forest balance and protect biodiversity. But threats still loom: habitat loss, poaching, human-wildlife conflict, and forest degradation continues. On this International Tiger Day, let's remember, saving the tiger isn't just about one species. It's about saving the entire forest, countless creatures, and the future of our planet. With camera person Sumit Dhiman, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
Well, the first batch of the Shri Buddha Amarnath Yatra arrived in Poonch district of Jammu and Kashmir on Monday. Over 1,000 Yatris from across the country received a grand welcome from the administration and locals, marking the formal commencement of the revered pilgrimage. The Yatra, spanning nearly 10 days, will culminate with the Chari Mubarak Yatra from Poonch to Shri Buddha Amarnath Ji Shrine in Mandi. Comprehensive arrangements have been put in place to facilitate the Yatris throughout their spiritual journey. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Trump sets new deadline for Russia to act on Ukraine or face consequences. Shooting in central Manhattan, 5 dead, including police officer and gunmen. And firefighters battle raging wildfires in Turkey, and Bulgaria's deadly Mediterranean heat wave persists.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Vipakshi Khurana, and moving on, Chinese and U.S. officials wrapped the first day in a fresh round of talks in Stockholm on Monday, with both the countries looking to extend a trade truce in the face of President Donald Trump's global tariff war. U.S. and Chinese economic officials met in Stockholm on Monday for more than 5 hours of talks aimed at resolving long-standing economic disputes at the center of a trade war between U.S. and China. U.S. Treasury Chief Scott Bessent was part of the U.S. negotiating team. China's Vice Premier He Lifeng was also seen at the venue. The negotiations in Sweden concluded with neither side offering details on their progress. The talks came a day after Trump reached a deal with the EU that will see the bloc's exports to the United States taxed at 15%. The expiry of that 90-day truce falls on August 12th. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. senators from both major parties plan to introduce bills this week targeting China over its treatment of minority groups, dissidents and Taiwan, which could complicate talks in Stockholm. Previously, U.S. China trade talks in Geneva and London in May and June focused on bringing U.S. and Chinese retaliatory tariffs down from triple-digit levels and restoring the flow of rare earth minerals halted by China and other goods halted by the United States. And now let's give you some updates on Thailand-Cambodia conflict. Thailand's army accused Cambodia of violating an hours-old truce, saying clashes continue despite a deal meant to end the fighting that has engulfed their jungle-clad frontier. Well, following peace talks in Malaysia on Monday, both sides agreed an unconditional ceasefire would start at midnight to end fighting over a smattering of ancient temples in disputed zones along their border. Thai army spokesman in a statement said soon after the truce came into effect, the Thai side detected that Cambodian forces had launched armed attacks into several areas within Thai territory. The statement further reads that Thailand is compelled to respond appropriately, exercising its legitimate right to self-defense. At least 38 people killed, nearly 300,000 others displaced in 5-day-long conflict. And the United States urged the United Nations Security Council on Monday to adjust its sanctions on Syria to help the country fight against terrorism. Acting U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Dorothy Shia, said on Monday that the United States is working with Security Council members to review Syria-related sanctions. Shia said that the Syrian government has made a clear commitment to combat al-Qaeda and Islamic State, and both groups are equally clear that they oppose the new government and are threatening to destroy it. Council members should not take those threats lightly. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a major U.S. policy shift in May when he said he would lift U.S. sanctions on Syria. According to a UN report, the United Nations sanctions monitors have seen no active ties this year between al-Qaeda and the Islamist group leading Syria's interim government. And North Korea on Tuesday dismissed the U.S. intent to resume diplomacy on North Korea's denuclearization. The powerful sister of North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, warned the United States against pursuing denuclearization after a White House official was quoted as saying President Donald Trump was open to dialogue with Kim Jong-un. North Korea said the United States' desire for dialogue with it will only remain a hope as long as Washington cannot accept the fact that reality has changed since the two countries' summit meeting in the past. Trump and the North Korean leader met 3 times during Trump's first term in a bid to reach an agreement on the denuclearization of the North. And UN Secretary General Antonio Gutteres called for a viable two-state solution to Israel-Palestine conflict at a UN conference in New York on Monday. The UN chief addressed the gathering by reiterating that the two-state solution remains the only internationally recognized framework grounded in international law and endorsed by the UN General Assembly. Gutteres described the conflict in Gaza as a destabilizing force not only for the region but globally, and said that ending the conflict requires real political will. Monday's conference at the United Nations was co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. The leaders also reiterated their demand for a peaceful solution of over the 2.5-year-old conflict. And in another devastating shooting incident in the U.S., 5 people, including a police officer and the suspected gunman, were dead following a shooting in central Manhattan on Monday. According to the sources, the shooter died from what is believed to be a self-inflicted injury. The incident occurred near Park Avenue, where a large area was cordoned off due to reports of multiple shootings. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said she has been briefed on the shooting. Meanwhile, in a similar incident, but in another U.S. location, 3 people were killed and at least 2 others were injured by gunfire in a shooting at a casino in Reno, Nevada, early on Monday morning. The shooting took place in the parking lot of Grand Sierra Resort. At least 2 people were killed and at least 3 others required hospitalization for their injuries. Addressing a media briefing, Sparks Police Department said that prior to shooting, the suspect's firearm malfunctioned. However, he was able to make it operable, after which the suspect fired multiple times at the group of victims at the valet.
Once operable, the suspect fired multiple times at the group of victims at valet. In total, 5 people in the valet area sustained gunshot wounds, and 1 victim was pronounced deceased on scene. Of those 4 victims, 1 was declared deceased at the hospital. The suspect then continued fleeing north through the parking lot. Another victim was driving through the parking lot, and the suspect opened fire on this person, striking the victim. That victim was pronounced deceased on the scene. In total, 6 victims were shot. 3 of them are now deceased.
Whereas a shooting incident also occurred in Thailand's capital city of Bangkok on Monday, where at least 6 people were killed when a gunman opened fire at a market. The fatalities include the gunman who took his own life. The investigation is underway to identify the gunman and the motive for the incident. No tourists were killed or injured in the shooting incident. Meanwhile, an eyewitness recounted the deadly shooting at the market and described the very close moment of seeing a gunman firing at the market. The 38-year-old survivor heard the gunshots as they were leaving the market. Upon turning around, she saw a man in black clothing in a cap firing a gun in rapid succession. Well, heavy rains in the Chinese capital, Beijing, have killed 30 people and prompted authorities to evacuate another 80,000, state media said on Tuesday. The fatalities were reported in Beijing's mountainous northern districts, with 28 in Meun and 2 in Yangqing. According to the reports, heavy rain started over the weekend and intensified around Beijing and surrounding provinces on Monday, with the capital getting rainfall of up to 543.4 millimeter in its northern districts. According to Beijing, have relocated 80,322 residents due to the rain, with roads and communication infrastructure damaged and 136 villages losing power. Late on Monday, Chinese President Xi Jinping ordered all-out search and rescue efforts to minimize casualties. Beijing issued its highest-level rain and floods alert, advising residents to not leave their homes. Well, the firefighters battled blazes across Turkey and Bulgaria on Monday as a deadly heat wave went into a second week around much of the Mediterranean. Turkey's forestry ministry said on Monday crews fought 2 separate blazes there on Monday following the evacuation of more than 3,000 and doubles pair Satvik Sairaj, Ranki Reddy, Chirag Shetty and 3 Sajoli Gayatri Gopi Chand are set to compete at the Macau Open Badminton Tournament. Sen will look for a reset after enduring a difficult season this year, with his best finish being a quarter-final appearance at the All England Open in March. The Indian badminton player has suffered 2 second-round and 6 opening round exits this season, including one at the China Open last week. Meanwhile, Satvik Chirag will hope to snap their semi-final jinx. The Indian duo have suffered 4 semi-final exits this year and will be a deeper run in the coming week. They take on Malaysia's Loh Hang Yi and Nag Eng Cheong in the first round. The tournament begins on Tuesday with qualifiers and will conclude on the 3rd of August. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.